How's everybody doing? There's a lot of you. Okay. So I'm Shelley, so let's make sure. Oh, look, that's big me. Okay, so here we are together. We are talking inclusion. If you know my work, you know that this is really the question that that I'm trying to answer every single day. And so my role is an advocate within the school communities around British Columbia especially. But this is the question, is how do we support inclusion? Are there any spelling mistakes in there? No, I'm looking at it this big. How do we support inclusion in our classrooms and our schools, especially as we're seeing as our population is becoming more and more diverse? And so this is the question that I often reflect on. And if you know anything about education, how this question has been answered over time is with special education. Have you heard of special education before? Of course you have, right? But the thing about special education is that it evolved out of the medical model, right? And so you know something's wrong, and you go to the doctor, and then they fix you. But we're learning a lot of things about disability, and the first thing is, well, maybe we don't want to be fixed. Maybe we need disability as much as anything that makes us diverse. And so because I'm a person who likes metaphors and I like visuals, I had to kind of think of a metaphor to help me understand what the alternative is. So if you've seen me present before, you may have seen this, but the idea is this. I think about all of the kids in our classrooms and the needs that they have and the supports that they need. And I imagine them, well, first of all, they have to be unsuccessful to get support. They have to fail, which to me is not okay. Like, this describes my experience in school along with many others. So I imagine all these little kids, and so I call this model the cupcake model of support. You have to fail, and then you go get sent to the cupcake that you need to eat from, right? Oh, you can't read. Go to the reading cupcake. Oh, you have a hard time speaking or communicating. Go to the speech and language cupcake. For generations, we've looked at our Indigenous learners and said, oh, you're broken too. Go to the Indigenous cultural cupcake, right? So that's what we've done. And so in order to access any of these supports, you have to first acknowledge that you failed. And I don't think you need me to tell you that there's a whole lot of kids who need support that don't have a disability. And so part of education that I find is really interesting is, especially in British Columbia, we're going through this huge paradigm shift right now where we're trying to figure out how do we meet the needs of kids with disabilities, but it's becoming bigger. Well, how do we just meet the needs of kids in general? And in that, sometimes we get caught in this paradigm of this medical perspective. And so what happens is we start advocating, but we're advocating for the wrong thing. We're advocating for more cupcakes. We could have all the funding in the world and never have enough cupcakes, right? And so the alternative is, well, what's the alternative to this? How can we actually meet the needs of kids? But the answer is not more cupcakes. The answer is to advocate for more batter. But when we're talking inclusion, the question is there a better way to use the batter? Is there a way that we can get supports to kids that don't rely on failure, that don't rely on crisis and trauma? And so, my friends, here is the solution, well, one of many, is if we advocate for more batter, we can use the batter better by advocating for the layered cake of support love, which is if you imagine every community, every classroom, every school, that cake is built for them. It's not based on failure, it's not based on disability, it's based on needs of that community. Those people in that community are the reason why supports come. We have contribution, we have strength. Everyone in that community gets a slice of that cake. You would never serve a cake horizontally. You serve it vertically. Everybody gets access to that cake. I have never met a kid who's not going to benefit from behavior support. I have never met an individual who's not going to benefit from literacy support, from cultural support, from identity support. These are not exclusive to disability. These are just parts of who we are. And so part of the advocacy that I have for inclusion is just this whole idea of how do we get supports to kids before they fail? We have to start realizing that our advocacy has to come in, these ideas of wraparound supports, not just for kids, but for the whole community. And those supports are determined by the people in that community, not by the failure as a result of that community. This is preventative. We're talking, like Rick is talking about this idea of retrofit. This isn't retrofit. This is we're baking a cake for this classroom. So this, my friends, is the work. What does this look like? What does this mean? This doesn't mean it's 27 people in one classroom, like adults, right? But this does mean, how do we design? We know what supports people need. We know what supports can be designed for specific groups of kids. So how do we support teachers and families and communities to design for everyone in that community so that everyone gets a slice of that layered cake of love? Friends, thank you.